Hello, in today's episode of the Maverick Mystic Arts podcast, we're going to discuss awakening the inner genius. So this is an aspect of Hermetic Alchemy that is, in many regards, quite unique, in that this particular path offers you an opportunity to explore the mental plane, the mental body, and the bandwidths of knowledge that exist there. Now, this is not necessarily unique to Hermetic Alchemy, but because it is not a demonized aspect of the systems at play, it allows us the opportunity to develop this particular potential. And this potential, this inner genius, can be applied across the board to any paradigm. This isn't just knowledge of the mind. Any skill that we want to learn, whatever it might be, we have an opportunity to explore this. So what this comes down to, as the path keeps unfolding, is an expansive view. And then that expansive view applied to and in relation to particular topics of endeavor. Now, one of the things that often holds us back when we're engaging in a particular subject is we impose knowns onto the unknown. So let's say we take alchemy, for example. We maybe have read a little bit about it. We heard some stories, whatever it might be. We have a small amount of experience. And then we make assumptions about everything moving forwards from where we're at. And these assumptions will forever hold us back, right? We want to open the mind and keep ourselves from congealing to an imposed view, an imposed meaning, and imposed outcomes, so that we can actually unfold the process of development in an organic and authentic way. Because there is no adhesion to specific attributes of the perceived endeavor, this allows us to grow and really just let that thing unfurl. And often it can happen quite rapidly. So this takes us into learning from a more of a depth type of perspective, more of an Akashic type of perspective, where instead of overanalyzing and over-focusing on the specifics of the immediate skill expression, we can allow for a deep foundation to start building. So you start learning in a very soft way, kind of encircling the topic that you're looking at. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to view any skill or any topic from many different angles and different views. And this allows us to see that topic, what the common denominators are from different views, what the differences are from different views, and then from a meditative and spiritual energetic standpoint, the different feeling qualities, frequency qualities, mind qualities that are enriched by each of the varying views. So, let's say you are learning Hermetics and you're looking at the, let's say, vital energy. Let's say we start at the beginning. So we're looking at life force, we're looking at vital energy, we're looking at how the body can be used in different ways to help amplify that. And of course, if we're going to look at it from the view of amplification, then we shift the lens just a little bit to the opposite of amplification, right? Where there's one, there's two. So then you start to learn the potentials for amplifying life force and depleting life force. Sometimes more energy isn't what you need, right? Sometimes it is too much to be balanced by the evolution of the individual in that moment. So you start, say, looking at amplification, at depletion, and then you start allowing the lens to turn a little more. Maybe you've been exposed to principles of the elements. And so you start looking at the life force from the different lenses of the elements, right? Okay, well, what is life force from the perspective of earth element, from the perspective of water, of air, of fire? And of course, depending on your skill level, of the akasha, from these different lenses. And now life force, instead of being one thing that you can only tap into from the perspective of the body and its relationship through the tissue to life force, now you start to have a principled relationship through the elements to the life force, right? And then, of course, you have it through the body, but then you also start to go, okay, well, what is life force in relation to the earth element through the emotions, through the mind? What are the cognitive earth principles? And how does that relate to the life force? What happens when you view the life force from the cognitive earth element, right? So from the mental earth element, from the mental water, mental air, mental fire, from the astral body, right? From the astral lens of the life force, through the astral lens of the astral earth, water, air, fire. Now you're starting to develop a very rich, essentially, it's a very nuanced and many-layered approach to understanding what the life force can be. What this does is it starts to open doorways of view, so we're not getting stuck in one particular paradigm. When we get stuck in one particular paradigm, we can, of course, excel in that and develop that a lot, but it, as always, will be the thing that holds us back and prevent us from further alchemical refinement, because we're latching on to a particular frequency, a particular bandwidth, a particular imposed set of meanings, and demanding that our experience carry out predisposed cognition and meaning and perception. And this is the opposite of embracing the unknown, which is key to what we're talking about. Okay, so we've taken just life force and its basic components, and we've looked at it from the perspectives of the elements, from the perspective of the mental perception, of the astral perception, of the physical perception, and we've looked at it from its potential positive standpoint, its creative and expansive principle, the positive principle in each of those, its negative or depleting or seceding capacity in each of those spectrums. And so you notice how every time we add one more thing, it's not one more thing we're adding. It's one more lens that suddenly is being applied to everything that's been done so far. And because of this, any tiny little thing that we cultivate insight from, or that we acquire insight from, or that is unveiled and insight arises due to that particular realization or unveiling, it's not one new realization. It's everything, the accumulation of everything up to that point, plus this one thing, as it relates to all of that. So this allows for very rapid expansion of growth, very rapid acceleration in our development, because we're not just stuck on a one imposed view of a new thing. Okay, so this starts just spreading out more and more and more and more. And you can take the life force, let's say you take the step 1 mental training and initiation into Hermetics, the Franz Barden book. You can apply all of this just to, concentration, basic focusing of the thoughts, looking at one thing. What is that? What is a mental frame, a mental You can't see what I'm doing with my fingers. You have one piece of enclosed mind, encapsulated mind that is a mental form, right? And you hold on to that. Now, this could be an image, maybe a cymatic pattern that are often representative, or mandalas. Visual mandalas are often representative of like cymatics and sound wave patterns. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's a symbol like a cross or whatever your tradition might be. And maybe it's a star constellation pattern, and you have the constellation that's you're holding in a very encapsulated mind space. So you focus on that purely and completely. Anytime the mind wanders, you return it to that. Okay, so what happens? What is that in relation to life force? Do different objects of meditation, objects of concentration, offer different spectrums or different capacities for the life force to shift and change and evolve in different ways? And what is the life force in relation to, let's say we forget the specifics of the object of focus, what does it mean for life force in relation to focus itself, right? Let's say you take one of the other mental trainings of observing the thoughts, not the thought forms specifically, but the arising and cessation of the thoughts, that wave of becoming and unbecoming of the thought processes. What happens to the life force itself, right? What is the relationship of the mind in movement, the arising of thoughts, the cessation of thoughts in relation to the life force? When the thought is at its very beginning, prior to forming, what's happening in the life force? When it's getting close to forming, what's happening in the life force? When it is of form, what is happening in the life force? When it's starting to fade out of form, just the first bit of that, what's happening in the life force? When it's, almost entirely gone, what's happening in the life force? When it's in that space where prior to any organization of the thought, and you're pre-cognitive in that sense, what's happening in the life force? And maybe you're looking at what's happening in the field of life force. Maybe you're looking at what's happening in the life force as it exists in the mind. Maybe you're looking at the life force as from the perspective of the body specifically, and enclosed within the body, or specific parts of the body, or energy centers, on and on and on and on. So you can take one thing and unwrap the entirety of the path from one thing through the vantage point of an infinite number of lenses. And each lens, you can look at like a series of nesting dolls that takes you from the macro expanse of the external shape of what that lens might appear to be on the outside, right? And then you start taking that nesting doll apart and uncovering more and more and more and more and more and more, going deeper, 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 deeper layers of refinement. And through that one lens and the series of associated nesting dolls of knowledge and perception, awareness, non-awareness, everything that's on the other side of that, till those nesting dolls get so small that they disappear into the Akasha. And then you've literally taken that lens, through that lens, you've walked through the Akashic doorway. You've crossed the threshold, crossing the Akashic bridge into the space of infinity through a lens. Through one lens of infinite, looking at, in this case, in this example, the life force specifically. And anything could be at the center of this web. It could be life force. It could be some type. It could be a symbol of a symbol. It could be any particular, subset of knowledge, whatever it might be. Anything can be at the center. Infinite lenses and view, infinite points of center. So we could look at this as infinite circumference, right? And infinite center points to an awareness expanse or circle of sorts, right? Or a torus. You could also look, if it's infinite circumference and infinite center, it is also an awareness that is devoid of circumference and devoid of center, because it is infinite in its view and infinite in its center. Infinite in expanse and infinite in foundation. So, as we continue to unfold this, we've realized that every single lens that we can look through is a doorway to infinity. Every single lens can be the center of that doorway to infinity. And it can also be peripheral. So I often discuss this in workshops as central and peripheral nodes. We often view things from ourselves being the central node, and everything else is peripheral to this central node. But every peripheral node is central to an infinity of other peripheral nodes. And so as the meditative capacities continue to excel, the expansive view continues to grow, the surrender of the enclosed identity continues to unfold. And the unfoldment of this thing, we find in each fold that there is a lens, a doorway to infinity. Every single fold. So it's fractals upon fractals upon fractals of unfolding at the same time enfolding, or like folding in and folding out, spiraling in, spiraling out, fractaling in, fractaling out, folds upon folds, flowing in and out. This is essentially the torus type of expression, where everything is coming into a 0 point and expanding or exploding out of that simultaneously and constantly. So it's a lot of fun. And as long as we can keep ourselves from getting stuck on any of those lenses, then this opens a doorway to, it's almost like a memory palace, right? If you're unfamiliar with memory palaces, essentially you take information and you embed that information into, let's say, like the home you grew up in. Every room in the home has different information. Maybe you have different parts of each room, have different subsets of the information that is localized in that room. You can use the body as a memory palace, right? This is very common. You use the body as a memory palace. And then through that, or through any other means, you have the energetic frequency that becomes its own memory palace. So you can study from the space of a particular feeling quality, a particular frequency, and then when you want to open up or revisit that memory palace of the knowledge learned within that frequency and the skills that are developed within that frequency, you evoke that particular energy. And how you find that, there's a million different ways in terms of tapping back into that. You evoke that energy, and then that becomes the anchor, the trigger, the cue for all that memory to start returning. And this, if we can do it from a perspective of constant unfolding and learning and awareness and this continuum of unimposed exploration, non-impositional exploration, then you tap that, and it's not only everything that you have learned in that space, but also the intuitive unfolding of everything that you can still learn in that space. And so this is where you get some very interesting stuff starting to happen from the perspective of memory palaces, because it is beyond walking through space of a known house. You're walking through the unknown, discovering the unknown And the unknown tends to reverberate through lenses of previous study and previous knowledge, which is why, in previous experience, which is why we can't get stuck to the meaning of information from only one lens. Because that lens, the meaning of experience, is so easy to for the ego, the identity, to get stuck on. So every time we're exploring this and we're getting insight, we want to recognize that very likely we're only viewing that new insight from our past experience. And so then we need to take that new insight and start turning the what do you call it, like the kaleidoscope, the carousel kaleidoscope of lenses, to start exploring it from all the other frequencies and deity yogas and Kabbalistic letter magics and element explorations and the lenses of the planets and the constellations and different beings, etc. On and on and on and on. And then that new insight becomes infinite once again, and in its expanse and in what we can pull from that. So I know this is or at least the way I talked through this, it might be somewhat convoluted. I hope it kind of makes sense. There's a lot wrapped up in here. If you have any questions about it, please shoot an email to me through the website, and it is a topic that I'd like to unwrap more, because it is allowing learning to be a tool for spiritual growth and for the deepest introspective dissolution and resolution of self as well, of identity. So if you have questions, please shoot me a note, and I'd like to unpack this further. It can be tricky to consolidate just on my own very specific lines of exploration in these talks. If you're interested in training, there is a retreat coming up in June 2026, and this is an initiation into Hermetics. It is a exploration of invocation, evocation, deity yoga, which is a wonderful tool for allowing the lenses of these greater arcs of intelligence and awareness to begin to flow through us. So it's a wonderful tool for surrender to these greater arcs of awareness. And of course, that will be followed by some deep integrative training, unwrapping the Amrita, the jade fluid, the nectar of the gods, this as a substance in relation to the burning off of karmic stagnation and that sort of thing. So anyway, if you're interested, this is June 2026, and you can find more information on the website in the links below the video here. All right, thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time. Bye.